And so both the command module and the lunar module have made their 14th revolution around on the other side of the moon, are now on this side of the moon. If we had glasses strong enough, perhaps we could see them passing across the moon. They've just come into sight and are right around the middle belt of the moon, on the equator of the moon. With the lunar module coming down, he now should be perhaps at a height of perhaps around 100 miles, a little less than that, as he gets down toward the 13-mile altitude, which he will have reached at 7:33, or around 14 minutes from now. He, at that point, will separate from the descent stage of his spacecraft, and then shortly after that fire the ascent stage engine to come back and rendezvous later tonight with the command module. The only communication we've had from them in the last couple of minutes was Houston talking to the lunar module, Snoopy as it's called, talking about the cameras aboard. Those cameras failed while they were on the first low pass over the lunar landing site, which is a great disappointment to the men on the ground in Houston and to the entire space program. They expected to get some good close-up pictures of the landing site as seen by a spacecraft coming in toward it. One of the principal objectives of this mission was indeed to get those pictures, and yet these men aboard the lunar module, Tom Stafford and Eugene Cernan, reported that they'd taken so many pictures, both cameras had gone out on them. How many pictures they got before the cameras went out, we do not know. They were just talking about the problem, and they suggested that on one of their cameras, the still picture camera, the batteries seemed to have gone. In the other camera, there were other problems with the power supply, and they're going to see if they can get them fixed up before they swoop down over the landing site for the second time. The importance of this flight so far has been that in that first pass over the landing site, there seemed to be no reason why the Apollo 11 astronauts in July should not be able to go safely into a landing. The spacecraft systems, the radar particularly, the landing radar, worked well, and for everything that Stafford and Cernan could see, there are no obstacles in the way. In matter of fact, they said that the site looked even smoother than they had expected it to look. As we've been hearing, Gene Cernan and Tom Stafford divide up the workload in that lunar module. Recently, David Shoemaker talked with lunar module pilot Cernan, asked how the two men who fly the LEM divide up the work.
You're basically divided in position by what you can reach in a LEM, Tom being on the left and myself being on the right. And although we have control systems on both sides of the spacecraft for redundancy, I use mine very sparingly, only because I'm wrapped up in two computers. Tom is basically wrapped up in controlling the spacecraft, in maneuvering the spacecraft to particular altitudes, maneuvering the spacecraft to acquire stars. I handle one computer exclusively on my side and share the load with the other computer in the center between us. These are guidance and navigation computers. We have to align our inertial platform, our gyros, if you want to call them that, to the stars so that we know that we're pointing in the right direction at the right time. Well, this is basically my responsibility, but not without the coordination and teamwork of Tom actually flying the spacecraft while I'm marking on stars. So we're never really running open loop independently. When I'm done with a computer, I'll say, hey, Tom, you've got it, and he'll take the computer and do something else that he has to do to maneuver the spacecraft, while I'll take it and match it with my other computer for redundancy solutions.
We're keeping in touch with Manned Space Center. It's being piped right into us here, and if we hear any more interesting conversations with the spacecraft, of course, we'll punch right into them. Nelson Benton at the Grumman Aircraft plant talked with Dick Bisano out there. He's the chief consulting pilot to Grumman and the man who trained Gene Cernan and Tom Stafford in the lunar module. Nelson?
Dick, in watching the television pictures from Apollo 10, the antics of Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan, we get the idea they're pretty extroverted. Is that the experience you had with them in working on the LEM?
Well, I think that Gene Cernan is the more extroverted of the bunch. They're hard workers, of course, but they do enjoy their levity, as we all do. They're typical fighter pilots. When they get a chance to joke a little bit why they'll do it. They've done it in the chamber tests.
Did they have any reservations about the lunar module when they first looked at it, either of them?
Well, yeah, Gene, not real reservations. They're of discovery, let's say, when Gene first noted that the descent stage doesn't really have the good, shiny outside skin, and you see most of the mylar. He had a few comments to the effect that it looked like Reynolds wrap, same as McDivitt had commented about it. I don't think he has any real reservations to fly it, however. It was just, he was in a jovial mood that day.
How much time have they actually spent in the LEM that they will be flying?
Well, actually, in LEM 4, the prime crew has only spent about 20 to 25 hours in the actual vehicle. Most of their time is in the simulators, which are pretty high fidelity in it, at any rate.
You spent a lot more time in it than they have, but then that's the way things are designed.
Yeah, we try to get the bugs out of it and before the customer gets the bird.
Thank you very much.
From Houston, we are listening to them update more material to the lunar module, arranging for the staging, which they say is scheduled now for about 7 minutes from this point. That's the point at which they leave the ascent stage behind. When they do, they lose an important source of power to the spacemen. They're circling the moon. The ascent stage engine, with up to 9,000 pounds of thrust, could be used to put the entire docked configuration, that is the command module and the lunar modules, back into a trajectory toward the Earth. But once they leave it behind, they have gotten rid of that one contingency in case of emergency, and they're left with only their service propulsion system engine in the command module with 20,500 pounds of thrust to put them into that Earth trajectory. As soon as we get any further descriptions from the lunar module, from Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan as they sweep down toward the Earth's surface, we'll be plugging into that, but we haven't been hearing much yet. They're talking engineering right now. They're concerned with getting everything lined up for the most critical maneuvers as far as Stafford and Cernan are concerned yet in this flight, and that's getting back to Charlie Brown, the command module, so they can come home. One of the important features of that rendezvous and docking is going to be being sure that that docking latch works and they can really hook up with the command module. And this was one of the concerns before they separated today, when they had a little trouble with purging the oxygen out of the pressure out of the tunnel between them.